Hello and welcome to Valley Viewpoint. My name is Lowell Mann and I'm glad you've joined us here this evening. My guest this evening is no stranger to Blue Mountain Television. He hosts a program on Blue Mountain Television called Lifestyle Magazine. There's also a program called Home at Last that is airing currently, and the recent series at Village Church, Heart Quest, will be on Blue Mountain Television here shortly, and that is Mike Tucker. Mike, welcome to Valley Viewpoint.
Thank you.
Now, you worked with your wife Gail
Yes.
for quite a few years
Yeah.
in television there with Lifestyle Magazine.
Yeah, we worked together in television for about 12 years. Before that, though, we had pastored together for years. Our ministry has been the entirety of our marriage. We did things together as a team, whether it be pastoral ministry, counseling, television, you name it, seminar presentations. We traveled the world together. We were together probably about 95% of the time. And people quit talking about just Mike or Gail. It was Mike and Gail because we were synonymous with one another, always together. So, yeah.
And you were married for like 40 years.
40 years. 40 years, 3 months, 13 days, and 3 hours.
Oh, there you go.
Just to be precise.
Just to be precise. And then all of a sudden she got an illness.
Yeah. She had been the picture of health, vibrantly healthy. At 60 years of age, she was still playing volleyball every Sunday. Wherever we were in the world, if we could get home by Sunday afternoon, we made it so that she could play volleyball. And then in March 3 of 2016, she had her first symptom, hospitalized her March 6, diagnosed March 16, and then she died April 10 of that same year from pancreatic and liver cancer.
That's a very quick,
very short window.
Very short. And like you said, she was picture of health before.
Oh, yeah. She was not overweight. She was fine. She was in great shape. She ate well. She exercised, great attitude, never sick. 17 years of pastoring a church together, she never once missed a week due to health, never once. And so, you know, that's pretty incredible to never miss a week of church or a day of work because of health. And then all of a sudden, boom, this happens. And it was quite a shock to us.
And you were on the road at the time.
Yes, we were in Vancouver, British Columbia when she had her first symptoms. And I asked her then if she wanted to go to the hospital. I thought she should. She said, no, wait till we get back to the States. So we landed in Dallas on March 6th. And when we landed, I said, all right, which hospital do you want to go to, because you're not going home. So she named the hospital. I took her there, and they put her right into a CAT scan, and it all went downhill from there.
Yeah, and then within a month,
yes, she was gone.
She was gone.
Yeah.
And so, when you get the diagnosis, what's going through your mind here?
First of all, when they said pancreatic cancer that is already stage 4 spread to the liver, I worked as a hospital and hospice chaplain. I knew what that meant. That meant that my wife is going to die, that they were going to send us home soon and try to manage her pain, and that she was going to die. So no one had to explain that to me. I understood that. But even then, it takes a while for that to sink in, because, you know, we had plans, our schedule was full. And I thought, well, you know, you get past that and then you're really thinking about, this is the rest of my life without this woman. And trying to let that sink in. Basically, you do what we refer to as anticipatory grief, where you begin to try to imagine what life without this person will be. And if you can do a measure of that, it will not shorten the grief time, but it may take just an edge off the highs and the lows just a little bit, and make it a little more smooth ride for you and help you accept the reality because you've anticipated this reality. And so the anticipatory grief, I think, was helpful for me. And I began to cry uncontrollably at times, especially when I was by myself, and began to realize that this meant that that woman who I love so dearly, my best friend, was going to be gone. And that reality just was crushing. Anyone who's been through something like this with the loss of a spouse or a child, I think especially, are the two greatest losses. They understand what I'm talking about. That pain is unlike anything you've ever had before. Anticipating, and then when the reality hits and the loss occurs, it's just an incredible crushing blow.
And no matter what you do, it's still there. You
it's
can't
still
get
there.
away from it.
There's no escaping this. From the moment of diagnosis, this became the prevailing reality of my life. Every morning, That was the first thing in my mind. All day long, that was the one thing that dominated my thoughts. And when I went to bed at night, I was thinking about her just before I finally fell asleep. And then often you would dream about it. So there was absolutely no respite. And that was true in anticipatory grief, and then, of course, after the loss. And everything I did reminded me after the loss that she was gone, because now I went to an empty bed. I got up and went to her kitchen with her pots and pans and her dishes, with her refrigerator still with things that she had bought, realizing I couldn't cook any of it. and so every meal was a reminder I'm alone.
Yeah.
You know, and so and then of course the first trip without her, because 90% of my flights were with her by my side. That first trip I got upgraded by myself. And again, the woman sitting next to me was not my wife, which it would have been otherwise. And so I'm sitting there crying inside, trying not to let this woman next to me think that I'm weird for crying. I get to the rental car for the first time without her, get to the hotel, walk into that empty hotel room and just cry. First time to preach, first time to shoot a show without her, all of those things was just the constant reminder of her absence. Birthday parties. My granddaughter graduated from kindergarten that year, just a couple months after Gail died. I had to go to that graduation by myself and tape it with my iPhone, you know, and celebrate with her, realizing, you know, she was glad that Papa was there, but Grammy should have been there, and she knew it. I knew it. So yeah, all of those things, you can't escape from this. This is the current, the prevailing reality of your life, and it overshadows everything.
And I suppose there's a 50-50 chance that each one of us that are married are going to go through something of this nature.
Now, I thought that she would lose me because I was 3 years older than her. I didn't take as good a care of myself as she did herself. There's great longevity in her life, and women tend to outlive men by about 7 years or so on average. So I assumed that I would go first. So I had more life insurance on me than on her because I thought she would need it. Well, you don't know. You know, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. And so our life occurred while we had other plans in tow, and it didn't turn out the way I'd anticipated. But yes, you're right. There's at least a 50-50 chance. The odds are in favor of the woman being the widow instead of the man. But still, it can happen either way, as I'm living proof.
Now, how do you go? What's the process of getting through this back to? I guess the goal is to get back to a normal existence.
And even then, your normal is going to be a new normal. There are a lot of people who have written about stages of grief, and that's never been helpful for me. Instead, I view the stages as more symptoms that you may go in and out of, not lockstep, but just kind of in and out of. For me, it's been helpful to look at grief as being kind of a vehicle. It's an old beat-up Ford with about 400,000 miles on it, needs a ring job, and the tires are bald, right? It gets to 35 miles an hour on a good day downhill with the wind behind your back. So that's the only vehicle you've got. And you've got this back and forth road. It takes you from point A, which is disorganization when you've had the loss, to point B, which is reorganization. It won't look the same as it was before disorganization. And in order to get from point A to point B, there's certain goals that you have to accomplish. Goal number one is to actually believe that it happened. You can't recover from any loss that you don't accept or the reality of. So that's goal number one. Goal number two is to be willing to experience the pain. You can't hide from it, you can't run from it, you can't out-medicate it. Eventually it will catch up with you. So be willing to experience the pain. Goal number three is to make the adjustments to daily life without that person in your life, and that starts right away, learning to sleep in a bed by yourself that first night. Cooking, paying bills, whatever it may be that you have to now make the adjustment to, travel, work, making those adjustments without that person in your life. And goal number four comes about only at the very end, when you've really done the rest of these and you're tired of grieving. That's where you say goodbye to the relationship as it used to be. Withdraw the emotional energy that was invested in that relationship and reinvest it elsewhere. Not necessarily in a new relationship, although that can be a part of it, but reinvest it elsewhere. You don't say goodbye to your memories or to your love, but to the relationship as it used to be, because it has changed. It used to be right here now, and now it's in your memories and in your heart. And so when you get to that fourth goal, that's when you find a new normal, And recovery is too strong a word for it, because to some degree you'll continue to grieve the rest of your life.
You'll never recover.
No, but you can find a new normal, and joy can return. New hope can return. You can have new vitality for your work, for your life, for your family, and that's where, once you've said the goodbye, you've withdrawn that emotional energy, and you begin to reinvest. That's where you find new hope again and new vigor for life.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, in that you can't, the pain is going to be there.
Yeah.
You can't just run away from it. You
Right.
can't get away from it. And I think I've heard you mention something about leaning into the pain.
That's what I used to do. Yeah. That's something that I at least coined. I felt like since the only way through grief is indeed through it, you can't avoid it, I wanted to lean into the pain. Grief is a bully. And it surprises you when you least expect it. And then something will happen, and boom, you're just blindsided by it. And so I wanted to fight back as best I could and take some measure of control, even though that would be an illusion at times. I enjoyed the illusion, no matter. And so it meant that I would anticipate things that would bring me pain, and I would do them earlier than I needed to. I got back in the pulpit earlier than I needed to. I took trips to vacation spots we used to go to before I needed to. I just took earlier vacations and went by myself. I did things that I didn't have to do earlier than I needed to in order to lean into the pain and to experience it and to reclaim those experiences for myself. Doing that, I think, helped me marshal my way through this process at a pace that was better than what it might have been otherwise if I'd avoided those things.
Because you look at the pain, it's going to come no matter what. So you might as well experience it and get it over with so that you can move on.
That's right.
I think that's kind of the idea that you're mentioning there.
The first time through anything is terrible. First time is awful. And so when you get the first done, the second time is not as bad. And so then it's a matter of, all right, I've done this before, I can do it now. I know this is mine. I can do this.
All right. Well, I'm talking with Mike Tucker, host of Lifestyle Magazine, and he's written a book called Tears to Joy, One Man's Journey Through Grief. You can pick that up at the local ABC, or you can get it online at Amazon or iBooks, or even Kindle as well. Well, we're going to take a break here right now, and we will be right back, so don't go away. And welcome back to Valley Viewpoint. If you're just joining us, my guest this evening is Mike Tucker, author of the book Tears to Joy, One Man's Journey Through Grief. And we've been talking about grief and his experience. And so, Mike, I want to take a moment here and talk about what we should do if we know someone that's going through grief, the things that we should say, the things that we shouldn't say, and that type of thing.
I've got a book in my library that I think the title encapsulates what you shouldn't do. The book is entitled "Don't Ask for the Dead Man's Golf Clubs."
Okay.
So, and I like that title because it kind of speaks to me of some of the things that I've seen people do after a loss. Even when I mentor young pastors, I tell them when someone has had a loss, the best thing to do until you've had a little bit of life under your belt is to show up and shut up.
Okay.
You show up, they can't say you weren't there. You shut up, you can't say anything incredibly stupid.
Okay.
But for the most part, I think that we make a mistake by trying not to talk about the loss. Because most people, if they're grieving in a healthy way, want to talk about it. And one of the great fears is that you've forgotten about the person who meant so much to them. They don't want that person to ever be forgotten. They want their contributions to the world and to life and to your community to be remembered. So I think that something to do is to tell people the truth. First of all, I don't know exactly what you feel. Even if I talk to a man who's lost his wife, I can't tell him I know exactly how you feel, because I don't. I've lost my wife, but my relationship with her was different than his with his wife. I'm a different personality than he is. Our belief systems may be different. And so I don't know exactly how he feels. I don't know what hope he has. I don't know any of those things. So I don't say that. And I think it's a good thing not to say, I know how you feel. But to say, I can't imagine how much this must hurt. If you need to talk about it, I'm here. And to even at times to say, listen, I can't fix anything. And that, by the way, is a wrong thing to do, is to try to fix it or tell them they're right or wrong in their expression of emotion. Here's what I've got. I've got 60 minutes today, a private place, and a box of Kleenex. You want to come talk to me and tell me your stories, I'm there to listen. And so really, as a pastor and a counselor, when I visit with someone who's had a loss, I may just ask them to say, where did you meet? What was it like? Did you fall in love immediately, or did one of you have to win the other's approval? What were those first days like? What were the joys? I'll ask them to tell me the stories. The good stories, the bad stories, the ugly stories, the joyous stories. And when they do that, I don't try to fix it. I don't try to moralize it, that was right or wrong. I just listen and show empathy. Those are the things people need, is a listening ear, a note of empathy. Not, I know how you feel and this will fix it, because, I've shared my journey in the book, but someone else is going to look at that and say, that's stupid, I would never do that. So if that's what you think, don't do it. Find your own path through. But I can't fix anybody who has grief, nor can you. There is no magic thing to say. And so encourage them to talk, encourage them to tell their stories. And if they're tired of that, then don't encourage them to do that. Just say, you tell me if you want to talk about it, if you want to tell the stories, I'm here to listen. And don't try to help them get over it too soon. To say something like, you'll marry again. Well, I did marry again, but when someone said that to me 2 months in, I wanted to strangle them.
You weren't ready yet.
I'm not ready for that. Don't talk about that. At that point, I didn't think I'd ever remarry. The pain was so huge, I didn't want to hear that. People were giving me names and addresses and phone numbers of women 3 months in. I'm like, what are you thinking about? This is crazy. You guys are nuts. And so that was not helpful. I know they intended well, they meant well, but that was not helpful. To tell a couple who has lost a baby, you can have another, that does not help. It's incredibly insensitive, and it's going to cause greater pain for the couple, because you've just minimized the significance of the loss they've had. Even if they do decide to have another child, it will not replace that which was lost. I've remarried. I have not replaced Gail. That loss is permanent. I can't undo that. I can't replace it. I've made a decision for my life now, at this point in my life, to move on and to remarry and to reinvest. That's not right for everyone. It is right for me, but it's not a replacement of what I had. This marriage is different, but it's good. Her personality is different. Our relationship is different. So that's good. But I didn't replace anything. So those kinds of things, I think, are incredibly insensitive, and you want to do what's right.
Absolutely.
But you don't. I remember once when I was a chaplain, there was a woman whose husband died suddenly, and she was in her probably late 50s, and I was in my 40s. And so I was there talking to her and trying to help her, and I didn't know her, but we had formed a bond early on as I was able to help her with some things. Her pastor showed up then, who was very young, and I have nothing against young pastors. I would rather work with a young pastor than someone my age any day, but that's another story. But and this young man wanted to he wanted to be of help, and so she would say something, oh, don't feel that way, don't feel that way, and he was trying to fix it and moralize things and to lecture her. And finally, and I knew this was going badly for him, but I couldn't tell him that. I didn't know him, so I just kind of stepped back. This is the pastor. Finally, she put her hand on his chest. She said, I need you to be quiet. And then she turned to me. She said, what can I do now? And she asked a question of me, and my heart broke for the young pastor, because he wanted desperately to help, but everything he was doing and saying was wrong. If indeed he had just shown up and shut up, if he'd shown up and just say, I'm so sorry, this has got to hurt like crazy, I'm here for you, we're going to be by your side, and just pass her a Kleenex and embrace her, that would have been the right thing to do. but he tried to fix it, and he tried to moralize it, and tried to tell her she was right or wrong, and that was the worst thing. And I didn't know the pastor. I wish I had just sat down with him and said, all right, but I know, because I've been there too, man.
Yeah.
I was your age once. Here's a better approach, but I didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. So you want to help.
Yes, everyone wants to help.
Yeah.
And usually the best thing to do is not to ignore it. Say, listen, I'm going to mess this up. I don't want to mess it up, but you tell me what I can do. And you probably don't even know. And if that's true, then just tell me the stories. Talk to me.
Yeah.
Tell me what you feel. And then maybe share your story. I would just want you to know how much. Someone came to me and said, I never met your wife, but I saw her on television. And the moment I saw her on television, I knew that's the kind of woman I wanted to be. And so I watched your show religiously so I could watch her and see what I could find about her, because that's the kind of Christian woman I wanted to be. That spoke to me. That was more helpful than most anything anybody else had said, because that was the kind of woman Gail was. The woman you saw on camera was the same woman she was at home with me. And when that young woman told me that that's the woman I wanted to be, man, that was helpful.
Yeah, there you go. Now let's talk about the symptoms of grief.
Yeah.
What are the? I guess you had mentioned earlier that you weren't too fond of the stages, but what are the different symptoms that someone might go through?
Well, understand that grief is a psychological, physical, spiritual, emotional response to any experience of loss. And the symptoms can be anything from somatic disturbances. That means you sleep differently. You may not sleep at all, or you may sleep restlessly for 2 or 3 hours, awaken even though you're still tired. And some people will just fall asleep and become comatose and sleep constantly and never wake up. It's kind of a form of avoidance, but still it's what they do. You feel sad. Your thoughts are preoccupied with the deceased, thinking about them only. A lot of sad, if only thinking. You lose interest in things you used to have great interest in. They don't mean anything to you. Some of those interests will return and some will not. That's been the case for me. Some things I used to enjoy doing, I don't care for anymore, and probably never will now. Other things I lost interest in for a while, but it came back. Appetite can go away entirely, or other people eat their way through grief, and then other people binge. They eat nothing at all and then binge. Eat nothing at all of that's normal. Frequent tears, cry at unexpected times, feel like a weight is pushing down on your shoulders, your chest, find it difficult to breathe deeply, difficulty in concentrating for long periods of time, difficulty in long-term planning. Long-term planning may be 5 minutes. Short-term planning is the next 30 seconds. You know, you will find yourself forgetting things. Short-term memory is history. One woman told me she was sitting in a room in her house doing something, realized she needed something in another room, got up, went to the next room to get it. When she got there, couldn't remember what she'd come for, which frustrated her. And then she couldn't remember where she'd come from or what she had been doing. And so, you know, that's normal. People think, I'm losing my mind, this is crazy. But you're not. It is normal. And then you tend to tell and retell the same stories over and over again. There's a need to. There's a need to. Part of that is trying to put in perspective this loss, and a part of it is to find the significance of your life with this individual, your life together, to know that their life mattered. Your subconscious is trying to process all these things. You'll feel periods of depression and sorrow and great sorrow, and a sad affect. Your face will look sad. Your eyes will look sad. People kept commenting to me, the joy is gone from your eyes. And that was true because it was gone from my heart. And so the eyes betrayed my heart. When I found a new normal, they would see me and say, there's joy back again. They just see it in my eyes. And so your face will betray you. It will give you away, especially to people who know you and know you well. So all of those are symptoms, and all of them are normal. The most intense period of pain usually lasts 6 to 9 months. With a sharp increase of pain at the 1-year anniversary that's equal to or greater than the original. And eventually things will diminish, the pain will diminish, and you will be able to think again and focus again, reinvest, and find a new normal and new joy. And that's the process.
It's a long process.
Take 1 to 2 years for most people. You can grieve actively up to 5 years and not be pathological. So this doesn't fix itself overnight.
It's not a simple quick fix. If
No,
it was,
it's not.
Everybody would
Yeah,
it wouldn't be an issue within our society.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for sharing
Absolutely.
today on Valley Viewpoint. The book is Tears to Joy, from one man's journey through grief.
There you go.
Excuse me.
You got it.
You can pick it up at the local ABC, Amazon, or iBooks. Thank you so much for joining us for Valley Viewpoint as well. I'm your host, Lowell Mann. We'll see you next time.